Hello, I'm Eric Hanscom. I'd like to welcome you to this first of my series of videos on flying drones in Iceland. Our story begins in LAX, where I said, wow, look at the color of that sign, and wow, look at the color of that plane. Wow, look at the barf bag with all of its funny sayings. And I can read these, but I sure can't read the ones that are in Icelandic. Now, the menu is a little daunting until you divided everything by 100 to get the real prices. And once we started flying, it was a fairly smooth flight. As we were setting up for a descent into Keflavik Airport, I was very optimistic because it was nice and sunny outside. I'd been warned ahead of time that in Iceland it rains all of the time, and when it's not raining, it's windy. So in between the rain and the wind, your flights are very, very limited this time of year. But this looked like a very good day, and I figured that once we burst through this what appeared to be a very thin cloud layer, there probably wasn't any other problems. Well, we got through the first cloud layer, and then there was a second cloud layer to go through. And this was looking a lot more gray and a lot darker, and unfortunately a lot wetter. And at this point I began to realize that the next 4 days in Iceland were going to be determined not only by the short daytime, but also by the rain and the wind. And so anyway, sooner or later we punched through this second layer of clouds and started setting up for our final descent. Once I saw the ocean, I saw there were some white caps. That's always a sign that there's a bit of wind, but the water looked glassy enough so it still didn't look that bad, and it wasn't raining yet, so I was optimistic. And when you first line up to land in Iceland, I had never been before, and I was expecting to see some trees, but there just weren't any trees. It was really like kind of a freezing desert, and I grew to really love it over the next 4 days, but at first it seems very, very barren. There's basically lava fields, and then there's moss-covered lava fields, and that's pretty much about it. Well, as we got closer and closer to landing, it started looking wetter and wetter, and pretty soon it started looking like it had just been raining. And then once we saw the runway approach and I saw the taxiway and I saw that these were wet, I figured that, okay, maybe rain's going to be a little bit more of a problem than I was expecting. And so anyway, we landed and the runway was soaking. And so I thought, okay, this is really not going to be all that great. I'm going to have to avoid the rain like the plague, it looks like. So anyway, now Keflavik has a very modern airport. It has these lovely walkways, but we didn't use those. We had to walk in from the tarmac, and once we pulled up to the tarmac, I knew this was going to be a wet one, and it wasn't getting any better. So anyway, I sprinted from the airport into the bus, grabbed my trusty rental car, and then things took a turn for the better because I pulled up into Bjorg and Olafur's house that I was renting for my stay here. And it was an absolutely lovely house with a beautiful ocean view. And fortunately enough, it was close enough to fly down to the water's edge. This was taken about 4 o'clock Iceland time, so it's basically dusk. I was dealing with about 7 hours of daylight, and it really never got super sunny there. It was kind of like going from twilight to dusk and back. One thing I noticed fairly quickly, though, that all of Iceland seems to be built over these lichens that cover lava flows. And so basically you would just, if you took the time to look closely, you could see some beautiful lichens. And these actually reminded me a lot of the belly flowers in Borrego Springs, where if you're willing to really peer down closely and look at the ground, you can see some beautiful things. So anyway, I got a little bit of flying in Bjorg and Olafur's house the first night and settled in, started charging the batteries, and I can't think of a prettier view that I've had to charge batteries since we left Thailand. So I got ready for day 2.